Today in Consuming Passions, etli Kuru Fasulye. Now that's a Turkish delight that isn't actually Turkish delight. Instead, it's a beautiful dish of beef and beans, lovingly simmered in a tomato and pepper sauce. And like many great dishes, it begins with this, the onion. Lovely Spanish onion is preferred for its sweetness, and it's cut into rings and simmered in a little oil. Just 2 or 3 minutes like this. The Turkish traditionally have used a lot of butter in their recipes. But in the Consuming Passions quest to reduce our intake of saturated fats, I choose to use an oil, and one that's high in monounsaturates. Something like an olive oil or a canola would be fine. Now once they're softened, I add beef, cubes of lean beef, and they are dropped in and stirred with the onion, about 500 grams for 5 or 6 people. This is a lean cut of beef with all the excess fat cut away and qualifies for a tick of approval from the National Heart Foundation. The heat is turned up on this so that the meat will brown and have a nice nutty flavour. Smells fabulous already. This is actually blade steak I'm using, and it's perfect for this job. Once it's browned, it goes into a casserole dish, and I can start making the wonderful sauce, which begins with tomatoes. 1 425 gram can of Australian tomatoes. I prefer to use canned tomatoes because the goodness is sealed in, but the work of peeling them has been done by someone else. And I add a tablespoon of tomato paste. So while the tomatoes are simmering away and reducing, I start work on capsicums. I like to use a couple of different colours, and I don't use green, I'd rather use red and yellow. And when you're looking for a capsicum or pepper, look for one that's not got any bruising on it. One like this is absolutely perfect. Capsicum, of course, is a member of the chili family, the mild-mannered member. A tip when you're cutting capsicums is, if your knife is not as sharp as it should be, cut from the inside of the capsicum out towards the skin like this. Makes it much easier. And once that's done, they join the tomato. Now even more pepper, this time from paprika. This is also a derivative of the capsicum. Dried, but there are paprikas and paprikas. This is the sort that will be favoured by Turkish people. It's still moist, it's granular rather than a powder. The powdered paprika, I'd only use about 1 teaspoon in this dish, but with this granulated I can go up to 2 tablespoons. What a wonderful colour it brings to this already very colourful dish. I stir this in well, I add some stock, chicken, vegetable or beef, about a cupful, and then reduce this till it's about 2/3 of this volume. Now this is a great dish for garlic wimps because it has no garlic in it at all. Then it's time to add the meat to the sauce. Notice the juice that's run out of the meat, proving once again that if you fry meat first, it doesn't seal in the juices. Once it's well mixed in, you can do one of 2 things. You can either cover that pan and leave it to simmer, but only if you can get it down to a very, very low simmer point. Just a really low bloop, bloop. What I prefer to do is to transfer it to the casserole dish, cover it up, and put it in the oven for about 2 hours at 120 degrees C. And while the etli Kuru Fasulye is cooking in the oven, why not make up a pilaf to go with it? Simply boil some white or brown rice, Australian of course, and then add some currants and why not a few pistachio nuts. Very Turkish. And there it is, looking and smelling fabulous. But what about the beans, I hear you cry? Well, in the traditional recipes, they use dried white beans that are soaked overnight and then cooked for ages and ages. I prefer to use Australian canned beans. Any beans will do. Fagioli, kidney, white haricot, soya beans. Simply drain them and then add them to the sauce, stirring in well, just to warm through, and it's ready to serve. So there it is, Turkish beef and beans served with a nutty pilaf. Touch of black pepper, and this peppery Turkish dish will be complete. And I'd recommend to complement it a robust Australian red, a Cabernet Sauvignon, with a bit of bottle age. From Consuming Passions, bon appetit.